Hello, welcome to 30 Minutes. I'm Rick Anthony. The new administration in Washington is pulling back the curtain on the government to show how it works and how it spends taxpayer money. In our own small way, we try to do the same thing in our periodic interviews with Jake Abel, Republican Commissioner of Radnor Township's 6th Ward. Welcome, Jake.
Great to be back.
Good to see you again. It's been a while.
It has been a while.
You've been busy.
Yeah, I just thought maybe you didn't want me here anymore.
No, I keep asking, but you're too busy. Well, let's get right to it. What is the 2025 budget for Radnor Township, the budget that the commissioners approved?
Sure. So we just came out of that budget cycle, passed the budget in November. It was the first budget that I've voted in favor of in my time on the board. And I believe we're around $60 million.
Up from?
From last year?
Oh.
I mean, my guess would be like in the high 50s.
Yeah, okay.
But, when I started, I think we were closer to like 45 million.
Yeah. If you know off the hand, what percentage of that is for entitlement programs?
I don't know that offhand. I mean, you'd have to really peel back the onion and get into the Excel spreadsheet. I mean, I think we have like 16 million for wages and compensation, and it would probably be in that.
Well, there's the pension plans.
Yeah, so it would all be in that, under that.
Right.
So within that 16 million.
Yes, but would you guess it's a high percentage of the total?
I don't know enough to go into that detail.
Right. Okay. My guess is that it is, because pensions are expensive, employee benefits are expensive. It's just money that has to be spent.
Yeah, I mean, and we've had discussions about the pension in the past. We've actually I can't remember which year it was, but we raised taxes due to our pension obligation.
Right. Yeah.
So it's a large number.
Yeah, and it can't be rolled back because it's contractual, I think.
Correct.
Yeah. No, we'll just have to watch it, I guess. What are some of the items in the budget that were especially troublesome for you? Although you did vote for it.
I did. I'm always concerned about headcount and increasing staff numbers. First of all, I don't think we've done a very good job as a board, vetting the positions, making sure that they're positions that are actually needed. Yeah. So, what we did agree upon in November is that we're going to start that process earlier this year. We always say we'll start it earlier. Let's see if we actually do it and keep to our word. But ask the staff. What positions do you think are needed for the future, and then having those discussions either in exec session or as part of the budgeting process, talking about that position. Salary, what's the intent? What are we hoping to gain from that position? And just really see if it's needed.
Well, what's the process? Aren't department heads asked at some point during the year, what's the head count? What do you project it to be, and why? Yeah,
I mean, they do that on the staff side.
Yeah,
but that oftentimes comes to the board as part of a package with the budget, and we're often voting on headcount that we've done a very good job. We haven't done a very good job, exploring. Mm-hmm. So, case in point, 2 years ago when we hired 4 new police officers and the I guess it'd be, I think it's the psychologist that teams with the police.
Yes. I remember that.
Yeah, I mean, that didn't really go through a full process. That was kind of just rushed into the board for a vote, and it had
but everybody was doing it.
And it had the support, so it passed. I voted against it at the time because I just didn't think we had enough conversation and discussion about it. And plus, it came in, we had that vote in June, when I really thought that vote should be held in November. I mean, that's a huge line item and should be part of a budgeting process.
Yeah. Is that person still on staff? Is that position still filled?
Yeah, those positions are on staff.
Are you satisfied that it was a good investment?
Yeah, it seems like there's value in it. I don't know if, again, I don't know if I would have, if it was to come today, I don't know if I would support it or not. Right. It's part of a discussion, but we We had the vote, it passed, so we have that position, and now we just need to make sure that there is value from it.
Is the police department fully staffed?
I think they would say they still don't have. I don't know what the report says, but I think there's probably positions that they would argue that need to be filled.
Budgeted or not budgeted?
Not budgeted.
Okay.
So my guess is we will have a discussion coming up this year on whether we want to add to the police.
Given the environment we live in, I guess the argument can be made that we need all the security we can afford.
Sure.
And then some.
Yep. I think there's an argument for that.
Yeah. I know from previous discussions with you, you're very concerned about the canopy. The township is blessed with a number of parks and a number of trees and so on. They're good for the environment, as well as aesthetically. What's going on with all the trees that are being cut down, and who's paying for that?
Well, the township ultimately, I think, is paying for a lot of it. I was just out over by the Willows this past week, and they were cutting trees down on Darby Paley Road that are in the right of way. That would be my guess is that would be a township expense, even though it's on a state road. But I think that we talked about trees as part of this budget. I think there's $400,000 for tree work.
Tree removal or treatment as well?
I think tree work
pruning
in general is the category. That number gives me pause. Yeah. And I've raised this issue at the last meeting. The township is planting trees in the right of way, and if they're in the right of way, then we have responsibility for those trees.
Right.
I think the township needs to get out of the business of planting trees in the right of way. If a homeowner wants a tree, even if the township plants it in the right of way, I think that homeowner needs to take responsibility for the tree. Otherwise, we're going to remain in this cycle where we're constantly having to care for trees. Yeah. I've heard from multiple arborists that the township doesn't have a canopy problem. A lot of people throw that out there as a buzzword, canopy. We have plenty of coverage in the township. So it's not a canopy issue, but I think the township doesn't need to be responsible and accountable for all these trees.
All the tree work you see just driving around, mainly for me it would be Darby Paoli, Newtown Road.
Right.
Those folks, there are trucks there all the time, pruning, I guess. Is that Pico?
Pico does.
Who's trimming back branches on the lines and so on?
So Pico does do a lot of work along.
So Pico pays for that, I assume.
They do.
Okay.
They do. Some people would argue it's not. They don't. I mean, they're in there for a specific purpose to get those branches away from the wire.
They're brutes.
So it may not look aesthetically pleasing at the end of it.
No. Some of those trees look really bad, especially the evergreens when they cut them way back.
Right.
And the wrong side is facing the road. It's like a Christmas tree.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
The corner. Well, I guess it has to be done. I know it has to be done because none of us likes to have wires down.
But the township,
in the dark.
But the township has done, on the positive side, the township has done a great job in our parks, making sure that we have plenty of trees. In Ditmar Park over the last year, we've lost probably 10 trees. They were either in some phase of declining health. They were considered a risk because they were large and over a bench or close to a pathway or a sporting field. So the township has. They were removed, but in its place, the township has, planted probably twice as many trees in areas that I think are more appropriate. So away from the playing fields, in areas where people can, bring a picnic basket, have a lunch, and be out in the open space.
I know this, again, from previous discussions, I know that Parks and Recreation had been another important issue for you, open space and so on. However, it is that time of year again where there is an ordinance against dogs running, frolicking in public areas, right? Well, somebody's breaking the law, at least from what I see. Is it an ordinance? Does it have the heft of an ordinance? And if so, is there a fine? And how is it enforced?
Yeah, good questions, and you might be surprised at my position on this. So many of our parks have no dogs allowed signs, but as you stated, everybody brings their dogs into the parks, which I tend to support, especially in parks where we have walkways. So as an example, Ditmar Park in West Wayne, by Wayne Elementary, St. David's Church. There's there's 2 other schools in that area. Mm-hmm. Where do you think it's safer for dog owners to walk their dogs, especially senior citizens? Where would you want them? Do you want them on the street at 8 a.m. where there's no sidewalks and you've got buses and parents dropping their kids off? Or would you want them in the park where there's a paved surface and they can
walk? On a leash.
On a leash.
Absolutely on a leash.
Yes, on a leash.
Okay, and with a plastic bag in hand.
Correct.
So that they can take care of what has to be done.
Yes, and I mean, for the most part, I think 99% of pet owners clean up after their dogs.
You think?
I think you're going to have, you may have that one rogue.
But that one is the one that causes a problem.
Yeah, I understand. But I still think the risk benefit, I want my neighbors walking on the paved surface in the park and not on the street.
So are dogs allowed on the trail?
So dogs are allowed on the Radnor Trail, correct? On leash. On
the trail, the walking trail.
Oh, in Ditmar Park? Or are we talking about the Radnor Trail?
The Radnor Trail.
Yes, dogs are allowed there.
Okay, on a leash again. Always on a leash.
I believe they would have to be on a leash.
Okay.
But your question is it an ordinance? I don't believe it's an ordinance. I believe it would be I can't remember how they characterize it. But to your other point, it's not enforced. Mm-hmm. I've asked the Parks and Rec Committee and the township to have a conversation, which the Parks and Rec Committee did, and it should come to the board for a vote in the coming weeks. What is our policy going to be?
But if a police officer sees a dog running, not on a leash, whether in a park or on a street, can the police officer cite the owner?
I think they have the authority
to do it.
I don't think. Well, I
it's
know they.
Not going to be done.
I know they have.
They have other things to do.
Correct.
I'm sure. Yeah.
And I don't want.
No.
I don't want our police officers.
No.
Being park police.
Mm-hmm. No. That's something we just have to live with, I guess, and be charitable. I'm not a pet owner, so I really can't empathize, but I understand your point.
Yeah, I happen to have
especially older people.
I have 2 85-pound dogs, and so
So you're the culprit.
So when Christy's walking the dogs, I would, or I'm walking the dogs, or the kids are walking the dogs, I want them to be as safe as possible.
Sure,
and
I understand.
On a street is not where you need to be.
What was the incident involving Wayne Presbyterian Church and the parking lot? And has it been resolved?
Yeah, thankfully, thankfully we did resolve it. So the township has an agreement with the church where we lease the parking lot, which helps out the Wayne Business District, and the businesses, the restaurants in the center of town. The church and the township have been in conversation and negotiations for some time about renewing that lease. That lease is 50 plus years old, so it's probably time to be renewed. I don't know that it was getting to a point where they were coming to any resolution. So the church, as the owner of the parking lot, I think this is how it went. Made took a position where we're going to break the lease, and if we want to sell the parking lot, we can sell the parking lot, and it's their property. And my position was, if we want the parking lot, make an offer to buy the parking lot, right. Increase the amount that we provide in part of the lease and renew the lease, or let them do what they want with it. I don't think the argument is we have a parking problem in Wayne, and I just don't think that's the case. We have plenty of parking areas that are
we do?
We have the South Wayne parking lot by the library.
Yes.
I've never seen it full. We have the AT&T lot, which we'll lose at some point.
It's all meter parking, though.
Correct.
Right.
We have the AT&T parking lot, which is the most I've ever seen is 10 cars in that parking lot. So you'd think there's 60.
Is that metered?
It is.
Okay.
So I mean that's plenty of parking.
But there was talk not that many years ago of building a garage at the top of North Wayne.
Correct. Yeah. I mean those conversations. I haven't had those conversations in the 8 years I've been on the board. Mm-hmm. So I don't know that that's any time in the future.
Okay. So that is no longer an issue. That is, the businesses in Wayne no longer concerned about adequate parking.
Well, they're concerned. I just don't think it's a concern. So anyway,
but they're constituents, not yours necessarily.
Well, I've gone into Wayne to eat at a restaurant plenty of times. Never had an issue with parking. Okay. So the township took the position of eminent domain. We'll go in and just strong arm and take the parking lot from the church.
You don't want to do that to God. You don't want to mess with. No, you don't want to do that.
So I think at the time I was the lone vote who said, it's not a good look. Two, like I don't think we need to be going in and strong arming. Mm-hmm. We don't like the way the negotiations are going, so we're just going to take the parking lot from them. Thankfully, cooler heads prevailed. Everybody went back to the table, and we were able to hammer out a deal. And so
it has been resolved.
So we resolved it. We passed the lease, the new lease agreement last board meeting.
Okay.
So it's a win-win, I think, for both sides.
Yeah. Let's go back to the budget again for a minute. When I was in consulting, I was a management consultant for a lot of times, and on many occasions, a client would invite us in to see if there was some way to reduce costs, whether it was an employee benefits program or processes, or procedures, policies, whatever. Take a look at the head count, see to what extent there was some redundancy and so on, and then go back with a proposal and show what the cost savings would be. We knew that if we went into any organization, no matter how efficient, we would find at least 10%. There has to be 10% waste. Has that a study of that kind ever been done in Radnor Township to see where the easy money is?
Yeah, to that extent, I would say I'd say no. But I think we started that process in a way this past budget cycle, where the township manager did a very good job of providing a couple different versions of the budget and what it would look like if we
different scenarios.
What would it look like if we funded these programs at this level, or if we scaled back? This is what a budget would look like, and it gave I think it gave everybody on the board the perspective of are there savings out there to be had, and I think we ended up accepting some of the cuts for some of the line items, putting money back in some of the other programs that we think we'll probably need during the year. But I think you bring up a good point, and this cycle I will probably take an even deeper look at each line item and see where we may be able to save based on our expenditures this year and what our needs are going forward.
Is there still not a committee made up of residents as well as township officials? And what is their role? It's the finance committee.
Yeah, CARFAC, or I don't know what it's being called now.
What's their role? Do they provide any kind of oversight?
They still exist, and they do provide oversight. I don't know what projects they're being tasked with at this time. But yeah, they would be another good resource to go in and pick through the numbers.
Presumably an outside, unbiased, impartial, and I think they have some expertise. You've got some accountants and so on the committee. Might be worth looking at. There's always money to be saved, always, in any organization.
But you know how it is. I was in government for a number of years, and once you get a dollar in your fund,
you're not going to give it up.
It is hard to give up.
We're seeing that now in Washington, as we will in several of the states, I'm sure. I don't know, it came to mind today. This morning, I got an email. I'm on the distribution list for Parks and Recreation. And like, oh my God, I'm not being critical of it, but it was amazing to me because there's a list after list after list of activities and services through the summer. And then they have a list of events coming up in the fall, in the summer, and then into the early fall. And I'm like, I never knew that.
Yeah,
it's amazing the number of services across the board for all ages, all groups, that this township provides for its residents. And I wonder how many people are really aware of it.
I think, I mean, as a parent with four kids,
sure.
I mean, I'm well aware of it. And I think a good majority of the community is aware of it because of how popular a lot of these programs are. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, just take tennis or pickleball, for example. If you go to Phillip Home Park, I mean, our courts are packed every day in the summertime. So, I mean, the word gets out there. They do a really good job marketing. Plenty of newsletters, plenty of the public information officer making sure that information gets out. So I think the township does a good job in terms of making sure.
I just wasn't paying close enough attention. I was surprised. I was delighted to see all the programs.
And if you go out in the summertime and just look at the Willows, you have several camps there.
Yes.
And I mean that's the youth, but then you'll also have clubs and activities for the older.
Yeah, they have gardening, I think, back there. It's great. I think it's great. You mentioned, suggested that those programs are not well known. Well, there's another program that may not be well known that I've used several times, and that is if you're leaving your home for a couple of days or longer, to notify the township and ask them to have the police drive by from time to time. I forgot the name of the service. But
yeah, I've talked about this for years, and I think this is probably one of the best services we offer in the township. And we're getting to that time, spring break, summer vacations. Yeah. But the police department offers a program. It's called the Vacant House Watch. Yeah. So you go on to the police department's website, you fill out a form, you put your address in, the dates you're gone. They even ask you, will there be vehicles parked in the driveway? Yes. Do you expect anyone else? Like, do you have a pet sitter? Do you have a cleaning person that is going to come stop by? And then they make, I think, at least 2 stops during the day. And so when I say that, you probably think, oh yeah, they go in, they do a periphery look. No, they park the car, they walk the perimeter of your property. In case you have a sliding back door, you have a balcony on the back side. They're making sure that all of that is protected. And, I see them, I know that they've done it at my house. I see them do it at my neighbors' homes. It's a great program, and I would recommend that any neighbor that is leaving for, 2 or 3 days or longer to sign up and make sure that they keep their house protected.
It's a great service. Radnor isn't unique in that program, is it, as far as you know?
No, I think other communities use it.
Okay. We are across the street, across Lancaster Avenue, from the Wayne Theater, which has been dark for a long, long time. And rumors persist. I'm not sure it's still true, but there were rumors about how that building could be repurposed.
Right.
A gym, a restaurant, a catering service, etc. What's the latest?
Well, it's probably the question I get the most walking around is, what will happen with the movie theater?
Well, and it's been a focal point for this community for generations.
It's the iconic view of the downtown area.
Yeah.
And
beautiful Art Deco.
Yeah, everybody. I mean, the hope is it remains, and it looks like, based on articles that I've read, that there is a group of investors who are going to bring it back to life
as a theater.
As a theater, and I'm sure they're going to have they'll have to do other things to make it worthwhile. Yeah. But yeah, I think over time we're going to have the theater back based on the reports.
That would be great. I don't know why they wouldn't put on some stage shows in there as well. Not quite like the media theater, which went all theater, but something in between.
Yeah. I'm interested to see what they do. It would just be good to see lights back on and kids being able to go in there and see.
Bages still owns it, right? I believe.
The owner
still owns it.
Still owns.
Yeah. It's just a beautiful building, And I'm old enough to remember when there were lines of kids on a Saturday with their parents queued up to see a matinee.
Well, I think
it's good for the community.
So Christy and I, when we didn't even live in the state, would come up here and visit family, and we would end up at the Wayne Theater.
Yeah, good thing. We were talking earlier about the Willows, which is one of my favorite subjects since I live within earshot of it. In the summertime, when they have events there, the tent and so on, the music, I don't know if they turn it up full blast, but the music just carries. And it is an open space.
Right.
You would expect the music to carry. It's annoying to go outside and be bombarded with this loud music coming from the Willows. In honest candor, I have not been a fan of the Willows project from the beginning. I still think it was a waste of money. I still think it is a waste of money. And so far as I know, I don't think that they preserve, or the organization that was created to preserve it, renovate it, has been successful in raising the money that's required. I don't know that, but that's my suspicion. What's the latest with the Willows from the township, from the commissioner's standpoint?
Yeah, so I think the noise issue is probably top of the list right now in terms of issues that we're trying to resolve at the Willows Park. This is an issue I've been dealing with. It would be calendar year 3 now, and I think we've got to find a solution soon, or as a board look at
what are the possible solutions.
Well,
turn down the volume.
No, I don't think it's a volume issue. I think it's the way the sound travels, Well, it
emanates mostly from the tent that they
right,
put up,
but
right?
with the topography, it kind of like goes with the tree line,
right?
Which is why certain houses in Inverary hear it more than others in other neighborhoods. But the tent's currently down because they're not holding events outside in the winter months. My understanding is the tent goes back up in early March, and the township will be out there to take sound tests to see, if they're able to capture it and hold it within the park, or at least, at a level that's tolerable to neighbors. And that'll take place, I think, probably sometime early March, into maybe mid-March, but definitely before the first outdoor event. The point that I think everyone's hoping we don't get to, but has to be on everybody's mind, is if we're not able to control the sound, we are going to have a conversation as a board and with the Willows and as a township of what will happen long term there. Will we allow the tent to stay up? Will the music have to go inside?
Right. Without the tent, they can't have the large events that they need. Therefore, it's not economically feasible.
Well, I think you can have a large event. You just can't play music if that's what the board decides.
But if they rely, and I don't know this, but early on the discussion was, they had a count. They had an expectation we're going to have so many weddings, music, so many other events, music, and they were counting on that for revenue.
I think you're right. I think music and the tent go hand in hand.
Yep.
And is what probably keeps the lights on.
Right.
But
and to go inside.
But I'll argue when we signed that lease, which I think I was the only commissioner that opposed the lease because of a number of issues. The tent was not part of the lease.
Right.
So that tent came after the fact. The board allowed it to stay. So the board, in my opinion,
they did contemplate using the terrace.
Correct.
But you're right. There was no discussion of a tent at that time. And they can't really use the interior of the building unless they've done some restructuring because the rooms are so small. It's broken up. So once again, they've got a problem if they can't use the tent.
Yeah, we'll have to, again, I think everyone's hoping we don't get to that point, but maybe you have to be a little bit creative. Do you put the tent in the back of the house, and does that provide a little bit more coverage and deflect the sound? So, the next couple weeks will tell. And you know, next time I'm here, we'll hopefully
I've said this before. They're good people. They're well intended. I think they're just misguided. That building was not worth the investment because it has no historical value. Architecturally, nothing special about it. There were other things that could have been done. Anyway, well, I think we've covered most of what we hoped to talk about. As always, it's always good to see you.
Great to be here.
Thank you. My guest today has been Jake Abel, who is the Commissioner of the 6th Ward, Radnor Township. I'm Rick Anthony. Until next time, take very good care of yourselves.